Ave Maria and greetings from the Tower of Lepanto. This is Father Angelo Mary Geiger for Standing Fast, a weekly commentary on Catholic life in the public square. I've been talking to you about chivalry, and today I want to talk to you about the virtues of chivalry. There are traditionally 5 virtues of chivalry, which helped us to understand what the spirit of chivalry is and how that institution is to be lived. And the 5 virtues are faith or fidelity, honesty, courtesy, prowess, and I'll explain what prowess is, and the last is generosity. So fidelity, honesty, courtesy, prowess, and generosity. And these virtues help us to understand and to live what chivalry is all about. First of all, fidelity. Fidelity comes from the word faith, and faith is first of all faith in God. I find it interesting that today there are some attempts to resurrect the ideals of chivalry, but to do it without God. And some of them are just kind of secular and say, well, you can believe whatever you want, just want to kind of use the tradition of chivalry to be a better person. And then some of these efforts are actually neo-pagan, which, purely Wiccan or otherwise believing in, the spirits of earth, wind, and fire and all that kind of stuff. But in fact, the tradition of Western chivalry, while there may have been ancient traditions that were pagan that were introduced in, for example, the Arthurian legends, the Western tradition of chivalry was very definitely Christian. And so the virtue of faith and fidelity was not some kind of abstract idea of loyalty, but it was first of all loyalty to God and a willingness to practice supernatural virtue, to be faithful to Jesus Christ, and to take as one's ideal Christ himself. And consequently, also to be faithful to the church. One of the first commandments of the code of chivalry is to defend the rights of the church. So the two things go together. And in fact, in the gospel, we're told by our Lord himself that we can't really love our neighbor unless we love God. The first commandment and the second commandment, as a summary of the whole law, love God with your whole heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Those two commandments go together. If we want to know what is good and just and noble in terms of the way we treat other people, if we want to truly respect the dignity of other people, we first have to respect the rights of God. And so fidelity, it does include the idea of loyalty to our families, men, loyalty to your wives, loyalty to your children. But it means putting God first and doing the right thing because it's pleasing to God. And as followers of Christ, we have to believe that being pleasing to God and doing what is right in his eyes is always going to pay off in terms of what's good for others as well. And we can't be cowed by people who call us, homophobes because we say same-sex marriage is the wrong thing to do. God comes first. And we have to believe that defending the natural law and defending the rights of God is ultimately in the interests of other people. We can't, the idea of fatherhood nowadays that's disparaged. You don't want to, correct anybody, or you don't want to stand up because everyone should, we're all equal, and we should be completely tolerant, make a religion out of tolerance. Faithfulness and fidelity is a rejection of the idea that tolerance can become a religion. Tolerance is a value and a virtue, but it's not an absolute one. So faith is this first virtue of chivalry upon which the others rely. The next one is honesty, and that's connected with the idea of honor, the idea that we should do the right thing for the right reasons and consider it a shame upon our reputation and upon our conscience to do anything that is dishonorable or dishonors. It also means keeping our promises, being faithful to our oaths of baptism, and whatever other promises we have made, and especially for married men, their marriage vows, and for priests, the promises that we have made to be chaste and to be faithful to the church and obedient to our bishops, or if we're in religious communities, to be faithful to our superiors. Being transparent, being motivated by pure motives, by the love of God and the love of neighbor, and then acting that way. Being the same on the outside as we are on the inside, being the same before our families as we are at work, not living double lives, but considering anything that has any connection with dishonesty or living a double life as something that would be absolutely intolerable, something that we couldn't live with. We should restore this sense of honor and have a horror of sin and everything that is dishonorable or dishonest. The third virtue is courtesy. And as I've mentioned before in Standing Fast, courtesy is not simply external manners, although it includes those things, because we are human beings, we have a body, and we show that we respect other people by the way we behave in an external way. But it's also a deep conviction about the goodness and the worthiness of other people. It's a presumption of goodwill on the other people. It's a willingness to treat other people the right way because it's the right thing to do, even if we are not always treated the right way. We're not going to lower ourselves because we're not always treated justly. In the old rules of war, the chivalric rules of war, considered it a loss to win in a uncourteous way. There were rules of warfare. There was an honorable way of entering into combat, and there was a dishonorable way as well. And it's not just about winning. Even for us who believe that we're on the side of right, we nevertheless have to always be unwilling to compromise, unwilling to do what is unjust, unwilling to tell lies, unwilling to ruin the reputations of other people, and all this kind of thing. We should try to let people understand that we are respectful of them even if we disagree with them. Then there is the virtue of prowess, and prowess basically means strength and courage. And for the knight it was military skill and strength. And physical fitness should have something to do with chivalry, and we should, consider our bodies the temple of God and do what we can to take care of it. But more important to that is this willingness to stand up and do what is right, even if it costs us something, to be willing to take a risk for the right reasons, to put ourselves out there for the common good and for the good of our families and those that we love and we are committed to. Men need to reclaim their authority, but they need to do it in a humble way. They need to realize that, like Christ, we need to offer our lives for the salvation of others. And finally, the last virtue is generosity, or sometimes referred to as largesse. And this is the idea that when God has blessed us, we should recognize the needs of others. So the works of mercy, the spiritual and the corporal works of mercy, should be something that is engaged in by men. It's not just about me. It's not just about... Sometimes men will use their authority in their family just to get what they want, to make their life comfortable, and everyone is their servant. We should use our authority and our power and our strength and the gifts that God has given us in the service of others. These are the basic virtues of chivalry, and we should recapture them in our own ideas and the way we think, and most of all in our behavior. And we'll talk more about this as time goes on Standing Fast. Until next time, keep the faith and don't compromise, but stay humble as well. God bless you, and Ave Maria.